Okay, um, good day everyone. We are going to go through the lecture 2, definition, process and principles in requirement engineering. So I'm sure all of you have read the notes in your rocks. So I'm going to take you through some important points here, okay? First of all, we have also looked at the definition of requirement engineering. So, as you all know, it is a process. Requirement engineering is a process, and the word engineering refers to a process that is being performed systematically. Okay, so the process of defining, documenting, and maintaining requirement, especially in software engineering design process. So it is a process of doing something in a systematic way. Now, for requirement engineering, when I say processes, most common ones are shown here, and of course, I've also given you some link of videos on requirement engineering. So they talk about the same points. Yeah. So the process begins with requirement elicitation and then goes to requirement specification. And we've learned what is the difference between requirement and specification last time, right? So next one, we will look at the requirement verification and validation. And of course, in order to complete the process, you need to manage it properly. So we will look at the requirement management as well. Now, definition. As usual, any topics or any subject that you are learning, I always advise my student to look at the definition first because it will make you much more easier to understand the topic. Now, for requirement elicitation, the definition is the process of obtaining information with stakeholders, which includes gathering, researching, defining, structuring, and clarifying the requirement. Right? So this is much prone to error. Especially, you need to clarify everything that you talk or discuss with your stakeholder. Remember, in the first class, I have told you, I've reminded you that um, in requirement engineering, sometimes we are the stakeholder, and sometimes we are the developer of a system, and we have to inform our stakeholder, right? So clarifying the requirement is very important. Now look at this. How does elicitation works in requirement engineering? Right. For example, we have a car that we want to buy, right? So questions arise like what color, which model of the car, and what specification that the car should have, so that we can decide which one is the best, right? So it is a stage of elicitation. Yeah? You need to look at the document collection, the identifying the stakeholders, who are the people involved. There could be more than one stakeholders. Yeah? And then, of course, you need to know or prepare a use case or a flow process diagram, yeah? And prepare stakeholder for elicitation. So preparing this requires a series of meetings. Again, we've talked on this as well. One meeting is not enough. When you are developing a system for your client, or if you are the client and you want to have a developer to develop a system for you, you must have a number of meetings to clarify any issues. Okay, so this is very, very important. You need to have a lot of meetings to make sure that error can be minimized if possible, no error at all. Yeah? Now, the stage of illustration process, usually we need to prepare the elicitation, as mentioned before, and always review and finalize requirement. And here you need to have minutes of meetings or even sketches or drawings to make sure that you understand what your stakeholder wants, right? So in this slide, I'm just showing you that some practices that should be done. Collecting documentation needed and analyze current system if there's any. Some aspect of the documentation can be a description of the organization. This includes their regulations, organizational structures, and so on. And then the project detail, existing report or any user manual, and of course the marketing material. Yeah. So these are the important thing for you to prepare when you do the uh, documentation of collecting um, data, right? So a use case process, this will be discussed in our tutorial session. Okay, we'll look at this later in our session. But the important point here, the next one is on the review and finalize of the requirement, right? So elicitation happens during a series of meetings with stakeholders. This is to define requirement for the for development team and stakeholders. Um, Discussions are many. This is to guide us to make sure we are on the right track. And then, of course, you need to write up. So this is the document that you need to prepare, and a lot of follow up. Yeah, this is actually necessary. Yeah, because remember I've talked to you. I've mentioned previously that you go and meet your your you go and meet your stakeholders, had meetings, and then when you go back to your office, sometimes the information get lost. Yeah, you lose some information. So you need to have follow-ups. All right. So elicitation requirement is very, very important. And we will continue this in our exercises in the tutorial session.